The Big Ten season is upon us. I've waited so long to talk about this. We had all of our Big Ten stuff lined up. We were ready to dish some season previews out. And then Kevin Warren said, season's canceled. We will not revisit this decision. In related news, the Big Ten season kicks off tomorrow night. Here we are in October. So let's talk about this. And we're going to go with a few programs here, or we're not going to spend 15 minutes on any one of them. Ohio State grand season preview. Many doubts I had about the Big Ten when it looked like everything was in a state of limbo, and if they do come back, if they don't come back. And here's what it felt like. What it felt like is you're training and dieting and lifting and getting ready to participate in the Mr. Olympia competition. But then all of a sudden they call you and they say, your spot's been taken. Sorry, your spot's been taken. Well, the first thing you'd probably do is get depressed and go to Burger King and get a double Whopper. And then you go get a milkshake the next day, and you just kind of let yourself go because everything you had been killing yourself training for has been taken away from you. But then, a couple of weeks later, the Mr. Olympia folks call you and they say, wait a second, we made an error. We have room for you after all. Competition's 2 weeks away. Can you still make it out here? Well, on one hand, you'd be excited because you get to compete. Your whole year revolved around it. But on the other hand, my body fat percentage is up near double digits right now. What am I going to look like? Well, what am I saying all this for? I'm saying all this because Ohio State, they never stopped dieting. They never stopped training. They're like a caged animal. It's palpable. You can feel it coming out of Columbus. They just flat out felt like they took themselves more seriously over this whole ordeal than pretty much everyone else in the Big Ten. I'm not wrong about Ohio State. Maybe I'm wrong that more folks didn't take it more seriously. But Ohio State, straight up caged animal right now. So we begin the hashtag Prayers for Nebraska campaign right now. But this isn't a game preview. We'll do that in a second. Areas of focus, a couple of them here. Secondary is first and foremost on everyone's mind in Buckeye Nation, mine too. Shaun Wade, when he opted back in, that was massive. Because that is one pillar that you can put in that secondary, and then you can build off that, and you got an alpha in the secondary too, and everything else can revolve around that. But the production, I think it's very reasonable to expect, will regress somewhat. It's to what degree does it regress? And also, week over week, do you continue to see improvement? Or is it just a unit that, looks a little in over their skis? They won't lack talent. I think that's obvious at any position group we're talking about. Second thing is just pull-away ability. We can start in week 1. They're favored by 26 against Nebraska. Now, normally, Ohio State would just need to win, but you know what the dynamic is here. They're playing less games than the big boys in the SEC and whatnot, Clemson, and so they probably need to win and win definitively just to remove any doubt. And unlike most years where fans who want you to cover the spread worry about that, this is a year where that coaching staff has to actually be cognizant of that. The third area of focus, offensive line and defensive line. Does it validate the recruiting efforts? Their recruiting efforts have been top-notch. I never freak out about these numbers of returning starters that are thrown around, or lack thereof, for programs like Ohio State, Alabama, Clemson now. I don't freak out about it because I know what kind of depth they have. I know how they recruit. If you follow recruiting every year, that shouldn't freak you out. Half the time, the guy who's replacing the starter ends up being better than the starter. So role players become every down players. You've got freshmen, redshirt freshmen, sophomores who end up becoming role players. Everyone just bumps up the ladder one rung. They think they're going to be incredibly good on the offensive line. You may not know the names yet. They do. You may not. I think you will at the end of the year. I have very few concerns about their offensive line. Defensive line, and pretty much every level of that defense outside of probably linebacker I got my eye on. But those are some areas of focus. Now, questions, tie it right back into the defense. What is the starting point there? What's the entry point? Because there, as I said, there are questions about new faces up front. Questions, when you're replacing the likes of Chase Young and whatnot, there are questions about your ability to consistently generate a pass rush. Yes, linebacker, I think, is pretty obviously the strength and the core of that defense, at least to start the season. Been a little while since we said that about Ohio State, by the way. But here's the thing. When they start the year, are there times where, even against Nebraska, are there times where even in a win, the secondary looks lost? Or is it one of those deals where, you can see rapid week-over-week improvement? Ohio State is going to win games, and they're going to win a lot of them. But sometimes you got teams that are so talented, they're winning even in spite of some flaws. And those flaws won't matter against, let's say, Nebraska. But you start seeing things sometimes in teams when they're playing inferior competition that you just kind of keep in the back of your mind. That's a red flag. That's a crack in the dam, so to speak, and it would matter down the road. How many of those do you see with Ohio State? So let's talk about schedule here. Quickly to remind you, the way that we do schedule here is we don't give you just a win-loss, win-loss. We don't project your win-loss record that way. What we like to do is we like to give a toughness rating, 1 to 10, for every single game that you play. And so for Ohio State's 8-game schedule this year, Colin's showing it to you right now if you're watching on YouTube, they've got no games that we rated a 10. Even the Michigan game, even the trip to Penn State, we rated a 9. Now that one could border on a 10, but we rated it a 9. But they, as you see there, we do have 2 games rated 8 or 9. There are 3 games rated in the 6 to 7 range, and then they got 3 out of 8. Nearly half the schedule is rated 5 or less. Our best, worst, and most likely record scenarios from our computer model per 1,000 season simulations. Best case and most likely are the exact same. Our model likes the best case to be 8-0. Our model also thinks the most likely path for Ohio State is 8-0. And the worst case is 6-2. What a life to be living in Columbus, Ohio. My official pick here, I'm going to roll right with our computer model. I'm saying 8-0 for Ohio State in the regular season.